The Morecambe and Vice Festival, which runs this weekend, is named after two extremely funny men. And as Eric used to say to Ernie, you're short, fat and hairy. We're just trying to work out which one of us fits that particular description.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Dawes.
Happy Friday, Bob. Here we are again.
Yes, it is. Well, in answer to the question you posed in the introduction, I think we come to the conclusion that we can both answer to that particular description.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly.
Anyway, here we are. Lovely, lovely Friday. Bring me sunshine.
Yes, or
in your smile.
As it says on the leaflet here for the Morecambe and Vice Crime Writing Festival, bring me some crime.
Bring me some crime.
Probably one
in your smile.
One of the worst puns I've seen in a long time.
Well, yes. Well, there we are. Yes, as you say, I'm heading up to Morecambe this weekend to talk about the book What I Wrote and meet some lovely old friends and hopefully make some new ones. But I'll have a little go into that in a little more detail in a moment.
Yeah, we'll be hearing more about that next week as well, I'm fairly sure. This week's guest is an absolutely top draw.
Yes,
probably the top draw.
I think so. I mean, I'm going to be very nervous about this interview because, as you know, I get quite tongue-tied when I'm talking to people that I sort of respect to the amount that I do our guest. So I don't know how the interview's going to go, but I hope you'll forgive me if I make a complete fool of myself.
Well, it's something I've got used to over the years.
Yes,
I'm used to picking up your pieces.
That's it. They are Morecambe and Wise.
Probably yeah, the Morecambe and Wise of crime fiction. How about that?
Oh.
But yes, I'm surrounded here by Lynda's books. Just my own personal collection. She's somebody's books that Lynda La Plante, of course, we're talking about, whose books I've read for years and loved. And in fact, two of them I was reading on the holiday when I first decided to write my first crime novel. So, along with Stephen Booth as well, I was reading one of his books, Dying to Sin. We talked about that when we spoke to him. And I was reading Royal Flush and Above Suspicion on holiday in Crete all those years ago when I first decided to write mine.
She's
I blame
absolute
her.
legend, and that is, I think that is a much used word these days, but is absolutely justified in Lynda's case. Huge influence, well, not only to writers and obviously for the many thousands, millions of readers worldwide of her work, but also because of her screen presence and all the extraordinary hours of viewing pleasure she's brought to the public over the years too. So we'll be talking to her about all those particular areas of her extraordinary career in a few minutes.
Well, talking about viewing pleasure, thank you for introducing me last week to Killing Eve. I've binged on that on the iPlayer. I've got the last episode left, so don't tell me what happens at the end. But
what happens is this. No, I've just finished the original novellas that it was based on.
I bought those. It's Luke Jennings, isn't it?
Luke Jennings, smashing writer, a Booker prize-winning nominee at one stage, as we said last week. And what is interesting is how different the books are. I mean, make no mistake, it's a wonderful read in their own right, but they are very different. So you realise the television adaptation by Phoebe Waller-Bridge brings a lot of herself into the screen version of Killing Eve.
What a wonderful character, Villanelle as well.
Villanelle.
Well,
they're all great. I mean, they are smashing. So are we going on about Killing Eve again? Well, why not?
Well, it's huge, and it's worldwide as well. I think I'm right in saying it was a tie-up between BBC and Netflix, I think. I think it's BBC 3, so it's available on the iPlayer, and I think it's on Netflix as well for
Is it
worldwide.
Really? I know the producers. It was Sid Gold, who's an American producer, I believe, and the BBC, although Phoebe Waller-Bridge is one of the producers. And again, that is something that Lynda La Plante will be able to talk about, being a producer on many of her own shows herself.
Yeah,
so,
acting, producing, writing. Again, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, maybe the next Lynda La Plante. Who knows?
Yes.
But, yeah, I've been watching that and loving that. Got one more left. I'm going to watch that tonight. And it's highly recommend that. I can back you up on that one without a doubt. That's a brilliant.
Well,
brilliant
don't
watch.
worry. I mean, because I nearly told you what happened. Right. So Morecambe and Vice this weekend. It's a two-day festival on this Saturday, the 29th of September, and Sunday, the 30th of September, and it's a great absolutely splendid weekend, and many friends of Partners in Crime will be there. We have the marvellous Ellie Griffiths, we have Graham Bartlett, we have, who else is appearing there? Hugh Fraser, you may have heard. I'm doing
if you don't come back from this festival with a Hugh Fraser restaurant review, I'll be very disappointed. It's been a while since we've had one of those.
We're going to pitch the restaurants of Aberdeen against the restaurants of Morecambe and come up with our Michelin star.
When are we releasing our Partners in Crime guide to the restaurants of Great Britain?
Well, do you know, I think that's something that's going to be on a slow burn. I think probably, God, can you imagine? We'd be extra fat, short and hairy if we actually committed ourselves to that. But so it's terrific. Who else is going to be there? Graham Bartlett, the wonderful Graham Bartlett.
Peter Robinson.
MJ Arledge, Peter Robinson. It's an incredible David Mark, the
friend of the show.
Yes, exactly. So they're all there. So if you're in the Morecambe region this weekend, please pay us a visit. We'll be delighted to see you, and there are lots of different things. We've got
I won't, because I won't be there.
No, where are you going to be?
At home.
Oh, right, okay.
yes. Right. Didn't get an invitation to this one.
Oh, right.
Did Milton Keynes Literary Festival last weekend.
Did you? How was that? How was
lovely. Yeah, that's basically my peak.
Yes, and well, you didn't have to travel very far for that. I know. Do you only do sort of festivals within walking distance of your house?
That might have something to do with it. Yeah,
right.
It's There's I think you've got to do 2 buses for Morecambe.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's a long old haul actually, but a worthwhile one. So there we are. As I say, Morecambe and Vice this weekend. Come along and have some fun and meet the people who write the stories.
And if there are some stories that you hear us talking about, or if you just fancy getting yourself some reading material, if you haven't bought from Kobo before, they are the sponsors of this podcast. Head over to kobo.com, find the book you'd like to buy, and if you enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, the lovely folk at Kobo give you 90% off of that first purchase, and you can't beat that, can you?
No, I don't think you can. Well, 95%, is that just asking too much?
Yeah, I think that would be pushing it a bit. I think 90% is very kind. I think we should probably speak to Lynda.
Yes, 100%.
Lynda La Plante, CBE, is perhaps best known for creating the Prime Suspect TV series and accompanying books featuring DCI Jane Tennyson, played in the TV series by Dame Helen Mirren. She's also known for the Trial and Retribution series and the Anna Travis novels adapted for television in 4 series of Above Suspicion. I could go on all day, but I think it's best we let her do some of the talking. Hello, Lynda.
Hello.
Bob here is he's got something in common with you, I think.
Well, being an actor at some point, and this is the first question, really, Lynda. It's obviously you trained at RADA, worked at the National, RSC, and became a well-known television actress. How much of that process of being an actor and those years of experience influenced your writing?
Oh, I think tremendously, because if I can't say it after all that training, how can, in a script, I ask an actor to do it? It was also very, for me to be casting all my shows was really innovative because, I could work with the actors and do the scripts, talk to them. And it's very interesting. Sometimes you'll get a script where it will say, angry, she slam through the door, and you go, well, there are degrees of anger. So an actor coming in for a read-through reads angry, and I go, I'm leaving right now. And you go, hang on a second, he's not that angry. Pull it down a bit. So that I always found very, very interesting to work with as an old actress. But I use it all the time. I'm heard in my office talking to myself at such level that I could be up for a straitjacket, really. I also cry and laugh. But no, the acting is never very far from me, but I couldn't do it anymore.
No, well, no, I'm beginning to feel the same. Actually, I have to say it's quite hard. It's quite hard work, but in that you are almost unique, I think, as an international best-selling writer. Certainly in the from the UK perspective, of actually taking control of your books and moving them into the medium of television and film. A lot of writers that we talk to go, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly do that," and lots of other writers say we'd like to do that, but we're simply not allowed to. But this has been a part of your whole process as a creative writer, and you work across many different mediums. Was that something that you always thought would happen, that you would produce and take your books to film and television?
No, to be honest with you, when you've been hired as a writer for hire on TV, you have no control whatsoever. And I began to find that very, very discouraging, that you were moved aside. And the result was I did 3 prime suspects, and then I had a whole group of people saying, no, we'd like to do it 2 hours now, not 4 hours. Then they'd come back and say, well, maybe 6 hours. Do we want more personal life? Will she get married? And I said, well, hang on a second. No, I hadn't seen that in her career. And so that's when I walked off Prime Suspect, because having so many people tell you what they wanted, and I don't know how it came about. Somebody just said, well, why don't you produce it? I had no idea how to do that. And so, I started with The Governor.
Yes.
And that was my first production. Built a set in Dublin, a prison. But you don't say, well, I suddenly became a producer. I had to learn. I had to hire very competent producers, executive producers, and learn as I went along. But to maintain that control was really so beneficial.
Yes. Well, it means that it's purely authentic. Again, we talked to lots of stories. I mean, Peter James tells a wonderful story how he got sent a script of his famously Brighton-based detective, and without him knowing, the production company had reset it in Aberdeen and made his and whatever. And he said, "What the hell's going on?" So that was never ever going to happen with you. So you are now working on the Tennyson novels, and
yes.
Your latest Murder Mile is out. That's an extraordinary thing, because of course everyone knows Jane Tennyson, loved Jane Tennyson. It was a major impact on British television and detective writing in this country. What made you go back to do the prequel?
Well, I was doing one of those events, where you give a little talk and then a book signing, and one of the fans asked, where did Jane Tennyson come from? And it was quite shocking, because I'd worked with the DCI throughout the first episode of Prime Suspect and the scripts, and she really led me by the hand. And I realised that she was already, a DCI. And when Helen Mirren came on as Jane Tennyson, she was already in her 40s. But I had never, ever contemplated how she grew to be that formidable woman. I just was guided by the real DCI. And I'm not the only one, by the way, because Raymond Chandler was asked where Philip Marlowe came from, and he said, I have no idea. So then I found it really fascinating to go, okay, she comes out of training at 22, and it was wonderful for me to go back that late or that early, because no DNA, no CCTV cameras, no mobile phones. And as a writer, it was very interesting to keep the pace going, whereas everything you look at now, every modern cop show now, you can pick up the phone, they've got follow their victim on CCTV camera, phone, go moving. But you couldn't in those days. I mean, just to match a blood sample was complicated.
Yes.
And, you know, the breakthrough, I think, in crime came with DNA, which I think Prime Suspect was the first crime show to ever use the word DNA.
Really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Wow. Certainly had one of the great villains. I thought John Bow was wonderful. I mean, you know, because it was wonderfully hidden, and it's a wonderful performance.
But you know that, I'll tell you something funny, is that, again, in Prime Suspect, I was a writer for hire. Although they were very accommodating in casting and discussions or read the script. And they rang me up and they said, "Oh, we're so excited. We've got the killer. We have found this terrific actor." And I said, "Hang on one second. How tall is he?" And they said, "What?" I said, "How tall is the actor you have to play the killer?" Well, yeah. And truthfully, I know an actor of 5'5" will put 5'7".
Yes.
So, in Spotlight. So I thumbed through Spotlight and I said, "Hang on a second, I'm going to get a taxi and I'm coming into Granada TV in Golden Square." And so they were, you know, nonplussed. And I said, "Okay, this is what you need to ask the actor. Could he carry me over one arm down the corridor?" And they looked at me in absolute stunned amazement. I said, "That is how he moves the bodies. He puts them in a plastic dry cleaning bag, and he's such a big man, which is why there's a sequence where he's discussing weightlifting." I said, "If he can't do that, then he can't play the killer." And there was a sort of, you know, and eventually they found John. But that's where, you know, I found the casting situations really interesting.
we touched on Murder Mile there, which I've been reading. It is brilliant, and it's fantastic to be able to, as you say, throw all of these kind of modern technologies out of the window and get back to good old fashioned detective work. And it's fascinating to see the difference between that and kind of modern crime, if you like, or crime set in a modern day. But
also to see her character growing, you know. Bit by bit, you can see how the armor starts to move into place with her.
Yes.
And to me, very interesting in Murder Mile, she oversteps the mark in cross-questioning and interrogating a serial killer, and just can't stop herself from actually giving him information that, if it came out in trial, would be hearsay. And so, I mean, I love all that. But, I mean, I have to do a lot of work with all the old cops that just feed me incredible stories.
I mean, the procedure must be so different. I mean, this is all pre-Pace and, you know, everything that's kind of changed since then. So it's a different world.
In those days, you could have two detectives, the good, the bad guy, you know, pushing them around. There was no tape recorder, no film camera in the interview rooms. And you can actually see it developing, how gradually, as we get more and more and more updated, how, you know, that part of an investigation now with detectives, you are hampered. I mean, if you're interviewing a suspect of a horrendous murder and he says, "I need to go to the laboratory," you've got to let him go. Because if you don't, it's recorded and he can say he was subjected to harassment.
Of course.
Well, hands tied right now.
Well, that sort of research, I can remember reading an article about 15 years ago, which was very influential for me, and it was you talking about your joy and enthusiasm, which is clearly shown in your writing, of research. I think you were saying something like, "I love going to different cities, be it Venice or Sheffield, and just walking around and working it all out, seeing it, feeling it, talking to people." And that is, of course, you know, such a part of your writing, the detail that you have and the obvious relish of research. I mean, have you always enjoyed that aspect of the creative process?
Absolutely, because it kicked off with Widows.
Yes.
You know, I was so shocked when I went in, was called in to see Verity Lambert. I don't know why to this day I didn't use my acting name. I used my married name, Lynda La Plante. And when they got this 2-page treatment for Widows, they were all laughing. They said, Lynda La Plante sounds like a transvestite trucker. And when I went in, Verity Lambert nearly fell backwards. She said, oh, dear heaven, it's not you, is it? I mean, I'd done all the minders. I'd been, because I was acting in all her shows. And I said, yes, it is. And she was extraordinary because she said to me, all right, I'm going to give you the opportunity to write episode 1. If it isn't what I want and it's not good enough, would you allow another writer to write the series? And I said, yes, yeah, why not? But the fear when I left there that I had to get it right meant that I went to source. I went to the police. I actually, and again, for me, it was a very big learning curve because from Liverpool, red-haired, short, I was always cast as prostitutes. And so I actually began to interview prostitutes, and I thought, how extraordinary, when I was acting, playing that role of one after the other. Hello, love, you're coming my way. It was different because they were different.
Yes.
I went deeper and darker, and I just found it so beneficial because it leapt off the page then.
Yes.
And to find the main character in it was from a market stall. And bit by bit, I found these women. And the police were so helpful, which is what I said to every writer. Go to source because they'll give you more than you ever anticipated.
Yes. We found that true, very much so. I can remember talking about Widows. I was working at Stratford East at the time, and Anne Mitchell came to see a show. I was chatting to her after. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm doing this thing called Widows. And I can remember saying, I think it's going to be very good. And she was absolutely right, because that exploded onto the television screens when it came out. And it was extraordinary.
When you go to source, so I was meeting with this woman whose husband was serving life for murder. She ran a market stall, and she was very abusive to me because I went up and said, excuse me, I'm writing this. And she said, oh, F off. And it went on for quite a while. Eventually, she said that I could meet with her at her flat. Now, she used to wear overcoats, headscarf, and woolly hats on top of that. She wore mittens on her fingers with the, fingers cut out, awful fur-lined boots. But when she opened the door to her flat, she was in a Jaeger suit, which then, when we're discussing costumes for Dolly Rawlins, the costume designer said, oh, right, Criminal's wife, I think she'd be in sort of mauve, crimpline. I said, oh, no, she's not. She's in Jaeger. Oh, really? But I would not have known that if I hadn't met her, talked to her.
Real life is often much, much stranger. Isn't it? That's extraordinary. And of course, Widows is now a big screen movie.
Yes.
And did that come as a surprise so many years after the success of the television that it should? It was wonderful. Gillian Flynn did working on the screenplay. I see.
Yeah.
And
I've never met her.
But a great cast.
Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Liam Neeson is there as well. Robert Duvall, Colin Farrell. Yeah, there's a massive.
It's a huge cast. But I never met Gillian Flynn. But I've had extensive meetings and notes with Steve McQueen.
Yes.
But here you go again. I was a writer for hire.
Yes.
Because when they sold it to Disney, they were able to buy it from Disney and without any contact with me.
Oh, I see.
And so that's what I mean. A writer for hire is very tough.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can do what they want with your material, but fortunately with Steve McQueen, he wanted me to be very much a part of discussions, not financially, discussions.
Yes.
And it's wonderful because the book has come out and sold like it's wonderful.
I've been reading it, Lynda. I've read it, and it is a fantastic book. The film has had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival earlier this month. It's I think screening at BFI London Film Festival shortly, and it's being released in November, isn't it? So that should
really, it's a very, very powerful film.
Yeah,
it's very political, very violent. But at the soul of it, right in the inside of it, are the women.
Yes.
And they are wonderful performances. Viola Davis is fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it because, I mean, as well as the kind of the procedural crime side of things, you do a very good heist and a very good organised crime book. One of the first ones of yours I read actually was Royal Flush, about 10 years ago. I think I read that.
Yeah, I love that.
And again, that's a really fun book, isn't it? And it's that's all kind of organised. Crime. You're looking at from the criminal's point of view, I suppose, as opposed to the the police that are chasing them. It's do you find they're quite different to write? Is it almost a palate cleanser for you?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's something funny about Royal Flush. In America, when it was published in America, too, we can't call it Royal Flush because that's a toilet in America. So you go, oh really? Oh, sorry, I didn't know.
So what did they call it there?
I'm just, I can't remember. I actually can't remember.
You probably lose track after 30-odd books, don't you?
Well, yeah. It's like, people say, so, widows, and you think, I was only 5 when I wrote it. You forget. You actually do forget.
You do, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you're perhaps working on the next one and you're promoting a book that you wrote a year ago and you're trying to get your head back in that world. It's a very confusing place to be.
Because I'm working on... You see, things are so... I'm working on a one called Dirty Dozen now. When I put Tennyson in with Sweeney.
Oh.
And I was being interviewed on the radio live. And they said, oh, you have connections with the Sweeney. So I said, well, yes, I'm doing Dirty Dozen. And they said, yes, but... And then I remembered I did a Sweeney. I said, oh, gosh, yes, I did a Sweeney. I was playing a prostitute again. But I said there was a very amusing scene where in the script it said she was screaming abuse at the police, shot over the bonnet of a car, a patrol car, spat in Dennis Waterman's face, and then punched John Thaw. And so I'm there with the director on the set, and... Dennis Waterman goes, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, look at the size of her, as if she can get over that bonnet, spit at me in my face, and then punch him. It's ridiculous. And the director, he said, well, do you want to have a go, Lynda? I said, all right. I was over that bonnet so far, spat in Dennis Waterman's face, and punched John Thaw, and Dennis Waterman, he said, she just spat at me in the face. And it's like, and so I was telling that story, and on the radio, they had the recording of me doing that scene. I couldn't believe it.
Good grief.
Yeah. This awful Liverpool accent. Hey, yo, I'm telling you,
But interesting, in acting, have you ever been tempted to appear or do a Hitchcock in any of your productions? Because
once.
Of course, yes.
Once, Prime Suspect.
Yes.
And the director said, "Do you want to be in the bar scene when the big boxing match is on?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, come on, just do it. You'll be in the background, You'll be serving on the table as a waitress." You know what they did? They gave me a tray that was so heavy, stacked with pints of beer, I was soaked to the skin. Then they cut it out.
Oh, no.
That was it.
Oh. So, obviously, with Murder Mile out now, are we to hear more of Tennyson next year? Have you got the next book planned? And
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, fantastic.
Yes. Dirty Dozen.
That is Dirty Dozen. Oh, I see. Of course, you've just
You see,
said.
the fascinating thing is that the days of the Sweeney that she's going to be moving into, to interview and talk to ex-officers who were in the Sweeney, how they tooled up. You know, they had no protective vests on. And I said, well, where did you keep the guns? She said, oh, in a cupboard. Now you have to sign in.
Yes.
You get the special team, body belts, body whatever, protection. In those days, they would just stuff it down their pants and they were in the patrol car.
And off they went.
Extraordinary.
Gosh. So, how far do you think are you going to be taking Tennyson to the point where the baton hands over to the elder Tennyson that we all know from the television and the books? That's the idea. So we've got many books ahead of us. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, Lynda, it's been such a joy talking to you. I have to say, that's another part of our bucket list sorted out. I'm delighted to say.
Thank you.
And thank you for your books because we love them. Yeah. And thank you for your all the pleasure you've given us on screen as well. Even though we never got to see you carrying that tray of beer. That would have been an outtake I would have enjoyed.
That would have topped it, wouldn't it?
Thanks very much, Lynda.
Thank you both so much, and also many congratulations on both your successful careers too.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's lovely. All the very best. Take care.
And breathe. Wow. That was amazing. I tell you what really threw me actually was having Lynda La Plante congratulate us on our success. Well, that was surreal.
Incredibly sweet of her, but what an interview. I mean, I could have actually just spent hours listening to her talk. So we only really just touched the tip of that particularly wonderful, not an iceberg, it's a volcano of creativity.
Well, hopefully she'll join us again at some point on the show because, as you say, there's so much we could talk about.
Well, there is, and what a lovely interview. Even though I asked her about her next book, and she'd just been telling me about it. That was the brain freeze I mentioned earlier on in the introduction that I sometimes do. I sort of go.
I don't think anyone noticed.
But that sounds great. I mean, Tennyson and the Flyers and the Sweeney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sensational. And the thought of that story about spitting at Dennis Waterman and punching John Thaw. There aren't many international best-selling authors who can actually say that's what I did for a living once.
Yeah, punch John Thaw in the face.
But again, you've got to have that tenacity. You've got to have that sort of, someone was saying to her, "You're not going to do it." Dennis was saying, "No, she's not going to be able to do this." And I suppose that goes to source really, and as much as the same tenacity is what's made her such a legendary writer.
If somebody says to Lynda, "You can't do that," the first thing she's going to do is do it.
Yes, so, exactly. Anyway,
and I think about her books as well. As I said in the interview, she does police procedural. She's going back to the 70s and doing these kind of more action-based, I suppose they inevitably end up being police novels. You've got the heist books, the organised crime. It's just generally crime and thriller. She's got it covered, and she can turn her hand to any aspect of it, which is
it's an incredible range of work, incredibly diverse and also extraordinarily successful.
Yeah.
And again, that interview gave us an insight into what hard work it is and the amount of dedication you need to actually be able to write at that standard continually and successfully. So.
And she's been doing it for so long and just seems to be getting more and more successful.
Right. Well, I haven't managed to read Murder Mile yet, but that's the next up on.
You can have it when I finish with it.
Yes.
Not until then.
Well, it does sound absolutely terrific. Let me just say. Where are we? It says the fourth in the Sunday Times best-selling Jane Tennyson thriller Murder Mile is set at the height of the winter of discontent. Can Jane Tennyson uncover a serial killer? February 1979, the winter of discontent, economic chaos has led to widespread strikes across Britain. Jane Tennyson, now a detective sergeant, has been posted to Peckham CID, one of London's toughest areas. As the rubbish on the streets begins to pile up, so does the murder count. 2 bodies in as many days. There are no suspects, and the manner of death is different in each case. The only link between the 2 victims is the location of the bodies, found within a short distance of each other near Rye Lane in Peckham. 3 days later, another murder occurs in the same area. Press headlines scream that a serial killer is loose on Murder Mile and that police incompetence is hampering the investigation. Jane is under immense pressure to catch the killer before they strike again. Working long hours with little sleep, what she uncovers leaves her doubting her own mind. La Plante excels in her ability to pick out the surprising but plausible details that give her portrayal of everyday life in a police station a rare ring of authenticity, said the Sunday Telegraph. And Murder Mile is the next book to read, so get it on Kobo now.
Yes, that is available on Kobo, as are all of Lynda's books, it seems. And if you've not bought from Kobo before, do. They very kindly sponsor this podcast and keep us on the air. That's probably not a good way of bribing you to use them, actually, is it?
No, probably not, but there we are.
If you've not bought from them before, please do. All of Lynda's books are available there. And if you go to kobo.com, choose the books you want to buy, and if you enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, Kobo will give you 90% off of your first ebook you buy from them, which is a great way to introduce yourself to Kobo. You don't even need a Kobo e-reader.
You don't?
No, you can get the free Kobo app for your mobile phone or for your tablet, which means you can read on the go. Costs absolutely nothing to do that, so you can get to your first book for, well, pennies, really. And
well, I used mine up ages ago, unfortunately. So
yes,
every week when you actually say this wonderful deal, I get excited all over again and realise I can't use it.
No, well,
used.
no, me neither. I've been using Kobo for a long time, actually. That's replaced my Kindle and largely replaced paperbacks, because as you know, coming around my house every week to do this podcast, there are books everywhere.
Yes, well, you're sitting in the middle of just in front of a Lynda La Plante mountain of books, and very impressive it is too.
Yeah, and the numbers that are in digital is probably about 3 times this. So it's a case of having to. Can't have too many books knocking around. Go head over to kobo.com, enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and get one of yours with 90% off.
Right. Well, I'm going to pack my bags and go to Morecambe.
Yes. Well, I've been waiting for a while for you to do that.
Yes, I know. Well, there we go. That's it. Go north, young man.
Yes.
Did I say young man? Who am I kidding? Anyway, yes.
But you're going to be back next week with a report from Morecambe and Vice. Hopefully some chats with some names up there, some friends of the show. Maybe have a little chat to Graham and to David Mark.
Yes.
And
I'm going to ruin their weekend by insisting that they talk into my recording machine and say a few words. But a few words is something none of them are short of, thank goodness, no. Be it in writing or in speech. So, yeah, there we go. So, Virgin Express, am I allowed to mention Virgin? Is that advertising? Who cares? I'm hitting the train.
Other trains are available, and they're often better.
Yes, really. I quite like the way the loos talk to you in a Virgin train.
Oh.
Yes, have you ever been to a Virgin train?
Yes, yeah. Getting up to Manchester requires
they have a little
train.
Chat before. I think that's rather comforting, really. It can get a bit lonely.
It's all about interaction on a Virgin train, isn't it? I know that normally if you've got a seat reserved, some interaction is normally required with the person who is sitting in your reserved seat when you get on the train.
Yes, that's true.
I found to be the case.
That's true. Well, there we are. So that's me, public transport, and looking forward to it. So speak to you next week with a report from Oop North.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Dawes and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.